Good evening and thank you for watching. This is a brief commentary on the sad and unfortunate attacks that occurred on two mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand on March 15, 2019. The attacker showed extreme hatred, lack of mercy, and evil when he went into these mosques, killing peaceful worshippers after the Friday prayer. These people were quite helpless when he attacked them. He showed no mercy towards them. He killed children as young as 3 years old. The youngest victim was 3 years old. The second youngest was 4 years old. He killed women, killed elderly. Fathers have lost their children, children have lost their fathers, husbands have lost their wives, and vice versa. The first person who saw the attacker coming into the mosque, he thought that he was somebody coming to ask about Islam, or he had some kind of question. So he greeted him with, "Hello, brother." And the first thing he notices is that this man pulls out a rifle and guns him down. Even the people who were injured, he continued shooting at them, as everybody has seen in the videos. I cannot forget the image of this helpless woman whom he shot from a distance outside the mosque, and then he walked out towards her as she was screaming out for help, saying, "Help me, help me." And then he showed her no mercy. He again shot her in the head twice, and you can see parts of her skull scattered on the street. Then he gets into his car, and as if nothing has happened, he was listening to music. He was, I think, chatting with somebody on the phone, saying how successful this attack was. Basically, he does not consider those people he killed as human beings. It's impossible that this man looks at the people he has killed as human beings. He has total hatred for people of different color, immigrants in general, and Muslims in particular. He managed to build up his hateful ideology over a period of several years, as he showed in his manifesto, which he called the Great Replacement. He called the immigrants in general and Muslims in particular he called them as invaders. Although they all came to New Zealand, and immigrants in general to the Western countries have come through legal and lawful ways. They came to seek a better life for themselves and their children. They live in peace with their neighbors. They respect their neighbors. They contribute to their community. They pay their taxes. They are law-abiding citizens. By no means, by no way could they be described as invaders. He built all his actions on a twisted, evil ideology. He describes in his manifesto how he went to Europe, and he was building up the hate through seeing people of other color living in Europe, when he wanted all Europe to be only for white people. This idea of hating other people based on their color or their religion per se is a very dangerous ideology. Even within the white race, this is what Hitler had adopted. He had adopted the idea of social Darwinism. He considered the Germanic race superior to other European races. They are all white, but he considered the Germanic better than the Slavs, for instance. And that, for him, gave him justification, justified for him the extermination of everybody of any other race but the Germanic race. You can see how this hateful ideology can lead to the whole destruction, to the destruction of whole humanity. And then hating Muslims in particular because of their religion shows how much ignorance and lack of knowledge this person and other people who have the same kind of perception of Muslims have towards Islam. I have shown with all detail in my previous talk about Islam, and this talk is titled, Does Islam promote violence? I've placed this talk, uploaded it on my channel. My channel's name is Learn Islam. You can watch this talk. It shows very clearly the evidence from the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet that Islam was the first ideology and worldview and religion to legislate clear laws that prohibit the attack on civilians, prohibit attacking peaceful people, calls for Muslims to incline towards peace and to choose peace, even with people who were attacking them one time but then chose peace at one point and wanted to go into a treaty with Muslims, that Muslims are obligated to choose peace over war. Islam prohibits the attack on women, children, attacks on places of worship, attacks on elderly people. Islam does not allow for Muslims to attack non-combatants, period. Only the aggressors, Muslims are only allowed to defend themselves against aggressors. This is stated very clearly in the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet, and I plan to make other parts to that talk. Does Islam, it will also be titled, Does Islam Promote Violence, Part 2 and Part 3, showing, clarifying this concept more and answering any questions. People who bring any verses from the Quran and Hadith trying to show that Islam calls for violence, they always take those verses and sayings of the Prophet out of context. The Quran is different from other books of faith in the fact that most of the Quran was revealed as a response to specific incidents that happened over a period of 23 years. So for each verse, there's a specific incident that led to its revelation. You cannot take that verse out of that context. You have to know what the context of revelation was. It's a period of 23 years, so it's a very long period, and verses are coming to describe and respond and guide the Muslims to on how to act in certain situations. So you have to look at what the situation was and then look at the verse. You don't take the verse and say, oh look, Islam calls for attacking the polytheists or the non-Muslims. This is totally not true. And then those people totally disregard the many verses and the many sayings of the Prophet that call for Muslims to respect their neighbors, to act in a peaceful way, to show mercy, to show gratitude to other people who are nice to them, that totally prohibit any attacks on non-combatants or non-aggressors. This is actually a matter that is extremely clear in the Quran, and I will try to clarify it more in other talks. I don't want to digress out of the main topic of my commentary on this attack in New Zealand. Then this person also, in his manifesto, he used the names of some victims killed in terrorist attacks by ISIS to justify killing other peaceful people. We as Muslims totally condemn all attacks on any peaceful civilians, all attacks on any country that allows Muslims to live in peace and practice their religion. It is totally forbidden for Muslims to show any kind of aggression towards peaceful countries that have allowed Muslims to come into those countries in a legal way. Just by signing these legal papers of entering those countries, a Muslim should know that he has signed a covenant that he has to abide with to live in peace and follow the laws of that country. I say this to my fellow Muslims, to anybody who may have any kind of extreme ideology, that just by entering these countries, by being allowed to enter these countries in peace, you have to live in peace. You have to follow the laws of those countries. You have to respect the people who have welcomed you in these countries. You have to be nice and merciful and just towards every individual living in this country. If something happens towards you, if somebody is aggressive towards you in any way, you go to the local authorities and you report that. Nobody should take matters in his own hand. This is what Islam teaches us as Muslims. And I say this to myself and to fellow Muslims to make it clear to everybody that Islam is totally innocent and totally free of all these horrible attacks that were committed by people in the name of Islam, and those people who committed these attacks are basically ISIS. We have seen a clear decline and total stop of those attacks with the downfall of ISIS. those people of ISIS have given such a horrible image about Islam and Muslims, because they perform their killings of innocent civilians in the name of Islam, which we as Muslims totally denounce. We totally denounce their actions. We totally denounce this kind of ideology that only gives a horrible image about Islam. Islam is a religion of peace, and as I mentioned, before the Geneva Convention, before any laws of combat were legislated, Islam had clear laws of combat that protect non-combatants and protect the weak, and show that peace should always prevail. This man went to Europe, and he was filling his heart with more hate as he saw more immigrants and people of different color. And he mentioned something that he looked at the burial ground of French soldiers. He can see crosses as far as the sight would see of those French soldiers buried. And he said that filled him with more hate, but I don't know why he is linking that to immigrants or to Islam, because most of those soldiers actually died in World War I and World War II. It had nothing to do with immigrants, nothing to do with Islam. The death toll of World War II was over 80 million. Death toll of World War I was close to 40 million. It was European countries fighting European countries. It was Christian countries fighting Christian countries. It was white people fighting white people. It had nothing to do with immigrants, or with Islam or with any other religion. So it was based on the the World War II specifically was based on the twisted ideology, the twisted racial ideology of Hitler, which this person is also adopting. And then he praises other mass killers and mass shooters such as Dylan Roof, who killed people of his own faith in their church because they were different from him in color. He praised Alexander Bissonnette, who killed Muslims in a mosque in Quebec. He praised Anders Breivik, who killed 77 of his own people just because they supported immigration. So I ask people to be very aware of the dangers of hate, the dangers of racism, the dangers of hating people just because they are of a different color or a different race. This is the first part of my commentary on this incident, and I plan to make other parts commenting on this incident and on the manifesto of the New Zealand mosque shooter. Thank you for watching.